Okay, so Soccerex Amsterdam. We're delighted to welcome here now our guest, Branimir Karačić from SofaScore. Branimir, I think the first thing you probably need to do is to just tell us a little bit more about SofaScore and obviously what the business involves.
Hi to all. First and foremost, again, good pronunciation of my typical Croatian name. It's not that easy, I know it. Thank you for having us. It's been quite an interesting day, the first day of Soccerex. SofaScore is one of the leading sports tech platforms in the world when it comes to live scores and sports statistics. We've been around for the last 15 years across the whole world, currently counting more than 30 million active users, available more or less in every single country in the world. And yeah, one of our specific things when it comes to comparing us with our competitors is that we're quite heavy on the statistics part and telling the story about data from our own creative angle and connecting it to the sports world.
We had a little conversation earlier about SofaScore and your kind of involvement, and obviously, you know, what's happened, and with things like this, with tech, these things do develop fast. I mean, what are you looking at now, the way that people are using it, as opposed to, say, potentially 5-10 years ago? How are things evolving? And I presume it's quite quick as well.
Exactly, pretty fast. You have to be aware of all the trends which are going on, not only from a technical standpoint, because things are moving quite fast in that department as it is, but also from a marketing standpoint to really understand your customers and to be able to adapt quickly into providing them what they are actively searching for. Like you said, the landscape 10-15 years ago in comparison to now has quite changed. Second screening is very often when it comes to the new generations. They are very active when it comes to not only watching the game live, but having a secondary platform on hand to consume as much information and data as possible. And that's where we conveniently come in, providing them a wider picture and some talking points that they can have while watching games live in the stadiums or in front of TV.
Obviously, you mentioned the offerings that you have. You've got the data, you've got the things that people can access. I think, you know, a few years ago, these platforms were used potentially for gambling, stuff like that. You know, different generations now are using these in different ways. So what are you actually offering? What do you see people consuming? And are there differences in the demographics from the boomers and the Gen X's, you know, perhaps like myself, to millennials and Gen Z, you know, the sort of younger generations?
Quite obviously that they consume everything that we provide in a different way. We have these new generations who are very heavily focused on content in very different variations, from video content, news updates, statistical elements. I even have some feedback coming from the Gen Alpha who are not even watching the games. They're only interested in the stats behind it. And then you have the older generations, like you mentioned, who are very closely connected with sports from their own point of view, whether it's the betting component of it, whether it's an active fan of a certain sports organization who are then closely following their favorite teams and favorite players. We as a company have to be very fast into understanding who, how, where consumes which kind of data and to provide them the all-around digital environment where they can find themselves and be connected with us in each standpoint. It's not only our app, which is our primary focus all the time, but connecting it with social media, providing different stories through those channels, collaborating with other brands, other media outlets to be available to them whenever, wherever. It's one of our key strategic points as well.
We also spoke slightly earlier and talked about the various the global application that you have, and as you've said just now, you know, this is used globally. But it was fascinating to hear that certain territories, you know, you have a lot more audience in there, and they also consume what you have differently. So just explain how various countries and various continents, looking at the same thing, consume it in a completely different way.
Yeah, one of the most popular countries where we're active is actually Brazil, and it happened quite organically. I don't have the answer on how it happened, how we grew there to have even more than 4 million active users in Brazil. There's also one fun story that we also always like to share is we as a brand are that popular in Brazil that even their Big Brother reality show uses our SofaScore rating as the benchmark to rate the inhabitants of the Big Brother house. So it's been quite a cultural phenomenon where we think we are doing the things in the best possible way is really understanding the custom elements of each country. their people, their habits, their way of consuming, both visually and in written, different types of communication. And we then try to see where we can build local teams to support us in that way. That's why, for example, we as a company have a team in Rio de Janeiro and Buenos Aires, now also in Italy. Wherever we find that we have the potential to grow and become the number one brand in the live score and stats world, we definitely pursue those challenges. And thinking globally but acting locally is definitely a cliche saying, I would say, from the business world that we can also utilize, and build our business upon. So we'll continue doing that. We already know which our following markets are that we want to attack and conquer with our product, and we'll adapt that same way of thinking to that as well.
I don't think it's a cliche. I think it's more of a truth, to be honest. I think you just got it on the head. Now, another saying that I think you're famous for is staying at the top is harder than getting there. And just to explain that in terms of the ethos of SofaScore as well.
Yeah, I talked about it earlier in relationship with our SofaScore rating, one of our key features that we have. When you launch something new, people are not aware of it, and maybe you're creating something completely disruptive onto the market, which will bring you to that number one spot quite fast. But then when the competition becomes aware of what you're doing and they're trying to disrupt you on another level, it sometimes is harder to stay on top than getting there. From the SofaScore rating experience that we had, we did it in different phases. The first phase was really trying to find that one element that needs to be developed, which already exists in the sports world, but on a completely new way, a new level. We managed that by developing the rating, integrating it into our product. But then even that became, I wouldn't say boring, unchallenging for us, but we noticed that we got there quite fast. And then it was, okay, what's the next thing that we have to do? We have to put it out there in the world. We have to conquer the media partnership. We have to conquer the social media world with pushing our feature as the number one feature in the world. That was also a success. And then comes the level 3, level 4, level 5. There's always levels to the game. And if you don't have the mindset to accept those challenges and pursue them, the pathway to getting down from the number one spot will be quite fast and painful. But if you notice that in time, then you will be able to stay on top for a long time.
Okay, well, with that in mind, a couple of final questions now. The first one is, let's have a secret for all of these businesses out here. What do you think, the next year, we don't really know what's going to happen, but can you look 5-10 years ahead into the future and see how the market, how the sort of landscape will look for technologies like yourselves?
I think the number one step is being open to new things. We have an example of AI technology, which is a heavily talked about topic for the last couple of years. And there is already a quite good adoption percentage of people integrating AI tools, not only just for the sake of it to say, okay, we're hopping on the trends, but really finding a place on where it fits inside your product. I can also, again, talk from the point of position of experience. We are successfully doing that with our product as well. So I would say following the landscape of trends, new technology and opportunities, and qualitatively selecting those ones that you consider can be a good fit, a good add-on to the services you provide, to the product you show, and elevating the experience of your customers by doing that.
And just finally, Branimir, you've earned this one, so here we go. Why should everyone around the world be looking at SofaScore? Why should we all be using that?
I'm a person who likes to think in the way of let our product speak for itself. So we consider in the landscape of live stats applications that we are the ones providing the widest coverage. So when it comes to sports, over 25 different sports, the deepest coverage. So we're not focused only on the top tier leagues. We have a side app, which is a tournament and league management tool, providing digital support to the lower league clubs as well, to amateur sports, to women's sports. So we are looking to find our spot as the most widest and deepest coverage-wise, providing versatility to the fan, and also investing heavily into different features that will diversify the experience that the users can have on other platforms in comparison to ours. I definitely can say we're doing a good job. The numbers show it. The feedback that we receive from the professional community, from the fan community is amazing. We really love to receive that feedback because it gives us a fresh perspective of what else we have to do. And just download the app and see for yourself why we do what we do. And any feedback is more than welcome to improve even more.
That's brilliant. Branimir, thank you very much for coming to Soccerex Amsterdam. And hopefully we can actually download this interview and get a SofaScore on this as well. And we can see some feedback from that, hopefully. But Branimir, thank you very much. Brilliant. Thank you. Cheers.